Well, hello there, my ghastly ghouls and ghostly gals. Looks like love can be a real heartstopper, especially in Valentine Bluff, where even Cupid dreads to tread. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell icon to join our eerie escapades. Now, prepare your hearts for a tale of love, curses, and mystery in Crimson Hearts. Sarah Jennings, the young librarian of Valentine Bluff, gently pushed a stray lock of chestnut hair behind her ear, her gaze lingering thoughtfully on the titles of the books returned that day. The library, usually a sanctuary of whispered conversations and rustling pages, stood eerily silent, its usual patrons seemingly swallowed up by the town's bustling preparations for Valentine's Day. From her position behind the checkout desk, Sarah watched through the large arching window as townsfolk adorned the streets with vibrant reds and pinks, the colors stark against the gray backdrop of winter. Valentine's Day in Valentine Bluff was always a grand affair, steeped in tradition and folklore, but Sarah had always observed it from a distance. Intelligent and inherently skeptical, she found the town's embrace of superstitions and legends endearing yet alienating. Her contemplation was interrupted by the distinct chime of the town clock striking 3, its resonant bongs echoing through the empty library. Moments later, an envelope slid under the library's front door, disturbing the quietude like a sudden gust of wind. Sarah's brows furrowed in curiosity as she approached the door, her sensible shoes clicking softly against the wooden floor. Picking up the envelope, her fingers brushed against something unexpectedly wet. Blood. The sight of the crimson liquid smeared on the plain white envelope sent a chill snaking down her spine. Inside, she found a Valentine's card, its cheerful message grotesquely distorted by the red stains. Sarah's heart thumped erratically against her ribs. This was no ordinary Valentine's prank. Something about it felt ominously wrong, a stark contrast to the festive air that enveloped the town. Determined to understand this unsettling occurrence, Sarah decided to seek answers. The next day, she approached Mayor Thomas Eldridge, a reclusive man who rarely engaged in the town's social events, yet was respected for his dedication to the community. Their interactions had always been formal and brief, but today, Sarah hoped to breach that professional distance. "Mayor Eldridge, may I have a moment?" Sarah's voice was steady, but her hands betrayed her nervousness, fidgeting with the blood-stained envelope. The mayor, a tall man with streaks of grey in his hair, looked at her with an expression of mild surprise. "Of course, Miss Jennings. What can I do for you?" Sarah hesitated, then extended the envelope towards him. "I found this under the library's door. It's disturbing. And frankly, it's not the first odd occurrence I've noticed in town." Mayor Eldridge's eyes shifted from the envelope to Sarah's earnest face. He sighed, a weight seeming to settle on his shoulders. "Sarah, this town has secrets, some of which might be difficult to grasp. This might be someone's idea of a sick joke, or it could be something more." "More?" Sarah's curiosity piqued. "What do you mean? Is there a history of this sort of thing?" The mayor glanced around, ensuring they were alone before leaning in closer. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "Valentine Bluff has a rich history, not all of it pleasant. There are stories, legends if you will, that have been passed down through generations, stories of love, loss, and curses." "Curses," Sarah repeated, skepticism lacing her tone, yet the sincerity in the mayor's eyes gave her pause. "Yes," he continued, "tales of spurned lovers and tragic fates. Most consider them just that, tales. But sometimes, especially around Valentine's Day, strange things happen that make you wonder." Sarah absorbed his words, her mind racing. The idea of curses and haunted lovers seemed like something out of the very books she shelved daily. Yet, the tangible fear that gripped her heart when she found the card was undeniably real. "Thank you, Mayor Eldridge," Sarah said finally, a newfound resolve firming her voice. "I think it's time I learn more about these tales. Our town's history might hold the answers I'm looking for." As she left the mayor's office, Sarah felt a shift within her. The librarian, once content in her world of books and quiet, was now embarking on a journey into the heart of Valentine Bluff's hidden past. Little did she know, this path would lead her to truths far stranger and more personal than any story she had ever read. In the ensuing weeks, Sarah's quest to unravel the truth transformed her days and nights. She found herself wandering the cobbled streets of Valentine Bluff long after the library had closed, her thoughts consumed by the town's cryptic past. The festive decorations that adorned every lamppost and storefront seemed to mock her growing unease. Each red heart and Cupid's arrow was a reminder of the dark undercurrent that ran beneath the town's cheerful façade. The chill of the winter air bit at her skin as she walked, but it was the chill of uncertainty that gnawed at her insides. Every whispered conversation she overheard in the town's quaint cafes, every sideways glance from the townsfolk seemed laced with hidden meanings. The more she learned about the town's history, the more isolated she felt. Her skepticism, once a comforting shield, was now a source of internal conflict. The tales of vengeful specters and star-crossed lovers, which she would have dismissed outright months ago, now haunted her thoughts and dreams. One night, as Sarah sat alone in her small apartment above the library, she pored over the faded pages of the town's archives. The story of the forbidden love affair that supposedly cursed Valentine Bluff was spread out before her. Candlelight flickered across the handwritten accounts of the lovers' doomed romance, casting shadows that danced upon the walls like restless spirits. Sarah couldn't help but feel a pang of empathy for the lovers, their names lost to time, their story reduced to a mere footnote in the town's history. Their tale of love, defiance, and tragedy resonated with her own feelings of being an outsider, of longing for a connection that always seemed just out of reach. It was a loneliness she had never admitted to herself, always buried under the guise of independence and self-sufficiency. In her solitude, Sarah began to talk to the specters as if they were old friends. "I wish I could have helped you," she murmured one night, her eyes tracing the faded ink. "Maybe then your spirits wouldn't be so restless." The next day, Sarah visited the town's graveyard, a sprawling expanse of weathered tombstones and solemn statues. She wandered among the graves, reading the names and dates, wondering about the lives they represented. It was here, amidst the silence of the dead, that she felt closest to unraveling the town's enigmatic curse. As she walked, she stumbled upon a secluded grave, set apart from the others. The inscription was worn, but she could just make out the name Eleanor. A sense of recognition washed over her. Eleanor, one half of the star-crossed lovers. Sarah reached out, her fingers tracing the cold stone. "I'm trying to understand," she whispered, "to make things right." That evening, in a quiet corner of the library, Sarah met with Mayor Eldridge. Their meetings had become more frequent, evolving from formal discussions to earnest conversations. The mayor, who had initially been guarded, now shared her passion for uncovering the truth. "Sarah, I've seen how dedicated you are to this," he said, his voice tinged with admiration. "You've uncovered more about our town's history than anyone before." Sarah looked up, her eyes reflecting the weight of her discoveries. "I feel connected to it all, Mayor. To the lovers, to the curse. It's as if their story is entwined with mine." The mayor nodded, a knowing look in his eyes. "Sometimes the past has a way of reaching out to us, asking to be heard, to be settled." Sarah sighed, a mix of frustration and determination in her voice. "I just hope I can find a way to put their spirits to rest, to bring peace to Valentine Bluff." As the days led up to Valentine's Day, Sarah felt a growing sense of urgency. The town, blissfully unaware of the darkness lurking beneath its celebratory veneer, continued its preparations. Sarah, however, knew that this year's celebration would be unlike any other. She was no longer just a librarian. She had become a seeker of truth, a would-be savior, grappling with a centuries-old mystery. The climax of Sarah's journey unfolded on Valentine's Day, a day marked by the profound irony of celebrating love amidst a tale of tragic separation. The town square, usually alive with celebration, was tense with anticipation, the air thick with the weight of centuries. Sarah, holding the locket pieces delicately in her trembling hands, approached the very spot where the lovers had met their tragic end a century ago. The cobblestones beneath her feet seemed to whisper tales of love and loss, urging her forward. The gathered crowd watched in silence, their breaths held tight in their chests. It was as if time itself had paused, awaiting the resolution of a story that had woven itself into the very fabric of the town. The spectres, drawn by the reunited Locket, began to materialize, their forms wavering like candle flames in a gentle breeze. Among them were the original lovers, their apparitions more vivid, more poignant than the others. Their eyes, deep pools filled with centuries of sorrow, turned to Sarah, conveying an unspoken plea that seemed to tug at the very essence of her soul. A shiver ran down her spine as their gaze met hers, a silent exchange of understanding passing between the living and the dead. With trembling hands, Sarah reached for her own locket, the metal cool against her skin. A realization, heavy and undeniable, dawned on her. This was more than a family heirloom. It was a replica of the cursed Locket, a tangible symbol of a fate that had entwined her own destiny with the town's history. It was a chain not just of metal and jewel, but of stories, of love and of sacrifice. "I understand now," she whispered, her voice barely audible, yet resounding with resolve. Tears streamed down her face, not just of sorrow, but of empathy for the lovers and their century-old plight. "To break this curse, I must let go of a part of myself." The words, spoken with a trembling certainty, seemed to echo in the stillness, reaching the ears of every spectre, every townsperson, every whispering wind. As she opened the clasp, the locket fell to the ground with a sound that pierced the silence, a finality that seemed to resonate through the very stones of the square. A profound silence enveloped the space, a hush of reverence for the act of sacrifice that unfolded before their eyes. The spectres, bathed in a gentle ethereal light, began to fade, their forms dissolving like mist under the morning sun. Their expressions, once marred by the anguish of an unending sorrow, now turned to peace, a tranquility that seemed to spread gentle ripples on a still pond, touching the hearts of everyone present. Sarah stood alone, the locket's chain now a memory in her palm, as the last of the spectres vanished. The town square, once tense with anticipation, now exhaled a collective breath of relief, of release. The curse was broken, the chains of the past undone, and in that moment, Sarah knew that her journey, woven intricately with the threads of love and sacrifice, had changed the fabric of the town's story forever. As the crowd slowly came to life, their whispers weaving a tapestry of awe and gratitude, Sarah felt a lightness in her being, a sense of completion. Valentine's Day, a day of love, had witnessed the end of a tale of tragic separation and the beginning of a new chapter, not just for her, but for the entire town. The locket, now just a benign relic, lay quietly on the cobblestones, a silent testament to the power of understanding, letting go, and the timeless dance of love and fate. Ah, my dear fiends, wasn't that just a tale to die for? Love's embrace proved to be a little too tight in Valentine Bluff, where breaking hearts means breaking curses. Leave a comment below and tell us, would you sacrifice your cherished keepsake for love beyond the grave? Fright fans, click next for more chills and hit subscribe to join our ghastly gang. You see, who dares to miss out, so watch our next video.